Hello, everybody. This is Sushma Tripathi joining from Mumbai. And today I welcome you all to our 116th Talk to the Expert series session, where we are going to talk about empowering parents and joy of learning. To talk more on this topic and to discuss it in different different sets, we have our guest today, and it's my privilege to introduce her. I have been going through her details, and it just leaves me. It's like an awe-inspiring journey of her, with so many accolades and such an extensive experience. She's Miss Manju Singhania, joining us from Dehradun. Before we take the session forward, I would quickly brief everybody about Manju ma'am. Who is she? What work she does, so that it becomes more easy for us to understand when she suggests something on the topic or when she's talking about it. So Miss Manju, she is the founder director of Joy of Learning Foundation, Dehradun. She is an early communication interventionist. She's a teacher training consultant, and she's an ex-director training and development at Latika Roy Foundation, Dehradun. In her 27 years of experience, she has been extensively working for children, with children, and young adults who have special needs, with parents, teachers, schools, principals, doctors, workers, like Anganwadi workers, mainstream teachers as well, and not only in Dehradun, but in various parts of India. Seeing her work, she has been invited by the Tibetan government also to conduct training sessions that focus on inclusion of children with special needs in Tibetan schools. So far, she has trained primary school teachers and principals in India, Tibet, Nepal, and Bhutan. She is also a member of the State Resource Group of Sarv Siksha Abhiyan and Rashtriya Madhyamik Siksha Abhiyan that focuses on educating children at different levels, primary, secondary, and higher secondary school, especially centered in Uttarakhand. Presently, she's also a member of the Executive Core Advisory Committee for Uttarakhand under the Commissioner of Disabilities, Uttarakhand. I welcome you, ma'am, today, and it's an honor to have you with us today.
Thank you so much, Sushma, for that. Firstly, for that wonderful introduction, and thanks to you and Dr. Shivali as well for inviting me to this wonderful platform. It's amazing. Thanks for having me over here.
Ma'am, when I told in the beginning that when I was going through the details which I received about you, and it's not just 27 years of experience and not just a few milestones that you have worked here and there, but it also talks about how closely you have seen journeys of like many parents based on different demography, different different situations. And there is one thing which you get trained with, right? And one thing how you train yourself while you're doing something, and 27 years is like a huge number. So ma'am, I would start with I would want you to tell us more about yourself, though I have introduced the professional aspect, professional side of yours, but I want you to talk about yourself, and how did this thought came to your mind that you want to specialize in education for children with learning needs?
Yeah. As when they say that when you plan for something, it really works well. You have a plan in mind and you work towards it, and things go really well. But when you don't plan, you don't have a plan in your mind, and sometimes things work for the better, actually. So I never thought that I would be going into the field of special education. Coming from a state like Madhya Pradesh, like my origin is Madhya Pradesh. I was born in Andhra Pradesh, brought up in West Bengal, Kolkata, and married in Uttarakhand. So it's like an national integration kind of thing. So finally, destiny took me and marriage took me to Uttarakhand, and here I actually went for an interview. I wanted to work with children. I always wanted to work with children. That was one thing which was quite sure. So that was there. And because of that only, I got training in Montessori method of education when I was in Calcutta. So when I came to Uttarakhand, to Dehradun basically, and I really wanted to work, so I started looking for, jobs in schools, and I went for an interview, which was for a children's creativity center. Yeah, so that sounded very interesting, and I thought something to do with the creativity of children. So let me see what it is. So when I went there, I realized that because of my Montessori background, the people there, they suggested that very soon they're going to be starting a special school. So why don't I join that? And that struck me. That was something which, कभी कभी होता है ना, दिल से आवाज निकलती है. And I was actually going for interviews in other schools also. But then when something like this came in front of me, I said, I have to take this challenge. Opportunity knocks at your door only once. So I just thought, why not just take it? So once I joined into this particular thing, from there my journey started, and it was a fabulous, amazing journey. Looking at, as it's said that the eye does not see what the mind does not know. So till then, I didn't know much about children with special needs. In Calcutta, I did go to the old age homes, the Mother Teresa homes, and all. So I was quite interested in that kind of work, and wanted to do something for the society. But this particular, it just caught my eye and my heart, I can say. And once going into this foundation, thus my journey started with the Latika Roy Foundation. I started as a special educator over there, took on to be the principal of the Karuna Vihar Special School, and went on to become the director of training and development for the organization. So a big, long journey of 21 years at the Latika Roy Foundation. So during this, my journey with this particular foundation, I did a lot of training, learned a lot, experienced, different kind of special needs, talk to parents, talk to professionals, talk to wonderful people who actually are my mentors. And thus, I just realized that this is the only thing that maybe I would ever want to do. So after 21 years over there, finally, I just, there were some issues, and that is why I had to leave that because of my personal. I wanted to shift to Hyderabad for some reason. Yes, but that also didn't happen that particular time. So बस वहां से मेरा जर्नी शुरू हुआ एक तरीके से, and here I am today with the Joy of Learning Foundation.
Very interesting.
Right.
Like you said, you have been in so many different states and places. I think that also adds up when you are doing some work. That experience of staying with in different cultures, interacting with different people, that also gives you a better understanding of human psychology.
Exactly.
Yeah, and
Exactly.
the kind of work you were doing, and I think that must have helped you a lot in that entire time frame, because you have been to different places and you have
Mhm.
seen closely how lives unwind in different parts of India. Ma'am, I would also like to know, like, it was a big journey of yours with Latika Roy Foundation, but then
Yeah.
you stepped ahead and moved on, and now we have Joy of Learning Foundation. So
Yeah.
tell us more about it, that what was the first thought that seeded the whole idea of this, and how you took it further.
Right. Right. Once I moved out of the Latika Roy Foundation, and then what happened was I started getting calls from various people. Parents started calling me, and there were many people who knew me as such, because of my journey there. So they all wanted me to look at their child or suggest something for them. And they said, okay, ma'am, we'd like to come to your house, if nothing else. I mean, just want you to look at our children. So that just brought a little thought in my head. I said, "Ab aur kuch nahi ho sakta hai." So I have to start something because nothing else was happening in that particular time. So I started, just took up two little small rooms, and I just wanted to start off a place to sit and, look at children. That is how the, Joy of Learning Foundation started. But as you know, it does not remain like that. Once I started with just 2 rooms and wanted to look at children, 1 or 2 children started coming, and then it started growing. And very soon, within a span of 1.5 to 2 years, I had about 20 children with me. So it was like a school, and then we had an afternoon session, and then weekly programs were going on. Then I also had adolescents and young adults. So some kind of social communication classes went on. So there was like, it started from one thing to another. It just kept going ahead. And that is what, so the Joy of Learning Foundation basically it's an early intervention and remedial education center where we look at children of various kinds of special needs. And we used to have an afternoon and evening session. But after COVID, that took a little bit of a standstill. And then now it is more of a online sessions. We do a lot of, because one thing about the epidemic and the COVID and the lockdown and everything, there were some you know like you couldn't run the normal way, because if we had to close down and everything. But besides these disadvantages, there were some advantages, that you were not only limited now to one particular area. So the pan-India thing started, and then I started getting children from Hyderabad, from Bangalore, from Mumbai. So it just grew. And right now, I mean, we are full-fledged in a way on online mode. But in the name of magic beans, it is something like spreading beans across. So that is what. And besides that, actually, it's not only just fully online. I also go to schools, and we have a small team where we look at, various needs of the school in terms of inclusion. So training teachers, looking at the children, helping the teachers with formulating IEPs and making plans for the children. Training teachers in particular aspects, whichever that they feel that is more required more, be it in learning difficulties or, various kinds of special needs, or the kind of children that they have in their school, and they want to know more about those children. So doing that, so that is basically, conducting workshops in schools in terms of inclusion and other things. And lots of webinars and lots of, topic-based things, special needs as well as academic-based, school-based and everything. So that is what a lot of those kind of work is going on right now. And I, being a master trainer from the Hannon Center, Canada, for certain programs like Teacher Talk and Learning Language and Loving It, and also a parent training program called Spark Communication. You mentioned the word early communication interventionist. So actually being trained in Spark Communication, which is a program to train parents, in terms of, how to develop the communication and interaction of the children. So, and that particular program makes me the specialist, the communication interventionist, basically. So it is, it is giving strategies for the parents, the Hannon strategies, basically, as to how to kickstart the communication, which is, maybe at a standstill or not happening in the developing in the normal pattern. So that is what it is. So developing a lot of things only in terms of communication and interaction. That is the focus of Joy of Learning Foundation right now. So we work in those things. Then apart from that, it is the remedial education. So I work with some of the schools, particularly here in Dehradun, where there are children who are in school, but who need some extra support in terms of remedial education. So I provide that for them as an extra classes for those. So that's happening. Then I work with a lot of parents, again, on communication, as well as, the PECS, picture exchange communication, talking about children who are on the spectrum. So it's a mixed bag of things, and yes, lots of things are happening. So Joy of Learning Foundation basically is more of a consultant kind of thing, which is working in a freelance manner across India right now.
I
So,
think I see it as a victory where it is it's like giving whatever benefit it can give to not only to the parents.
mhm,
Interestingly, it is so heartwarming to listen to this because usually what happens, people are either working only with the parents in close relation to the parents, but what you have been doing over the years is interacting at different levels with the teachers, with the schools, with workshops, taking workshops,
right,
and with now being online also. So your the horizon has expanded, and
mhm,
I'm sure even the parents, the reason behind they come to you and looking for seeking advice or guidance is because that experience which you get after interacting school setup or the education system also helps these parents when they're having
right,
one-to-one interaction with you.
right.
So I think that is that so much explains joy of learning. It is not specified for some particular
Exactly.
category or some particular
It's
person.
more of a
But
need-based kind of thing. And
yeah,
as I talked about the magic beans, it
yeah,
is
yeah,
like
yeah,
spreading the beans of joy
yeah.
as in
Yeah,
whichever
so it's
way
for
possible.
everybody, and
Yeah.
everybody's welcome. So we have few comments from our viewers which I would like to read as
Mm,
before we go to our next segment. Yeah, so we had a Spark team here with us. They had come to our platform, and they had also shared their insights.
ah,
And yeah, so
mm,
we have Nina Girish with us. She agrees to what you said, that lockdown came with its pros and cons,
yeah.
and there was a time where we all felt what next, what we are going to do, but then eventually we found a way. And she
Mm,
also says that it is interesting to hear about your journey and such great experience you have shared.
thank
And
you so much.
Nama, she says she's very happy to join and learn from you. So yeah, these are our viewers, our supporters, our ambassadors who take out time and they attend these sessions,
Yeah.
and they share this with other people also. Ma'am, I would, like you said, there was one section of one part of your life where you had an experience of working for a foundation, then you founded one more foundation, and the idea behind that, but when parents started approaching you, you felt the need that I cannot just stop here, I have to work on something. Throughout these years, wherever you have interacted, what have you found to be some of the most effective methods which you felt that is working with children and even the young adults with special needs, particularly in the preschool level, because that is phase of for kids. When we say in early preschool, it is very difficult and overwhelming for parents also to cope up in in those initial years,
Yeah.
because the child is not so vocal and they are not so expressive also. So what were those methods or techniques you found that is working for you?
Mm. Very rightly said, when you're talking about the preschool years, we all know they are the foundation years, and they just form that such a strong that requirement is there during those years to have a very positive communication or interaction with people, uh, because that is the foundation, as I'm saying, because once there are some gaps in a foundation like that, you cannot build a long or a high wall on top of that. So that has to be very, very strong. And what happens is, instead of, I mean, talking about strategies or techniques or anything, what I'd like to say is, what is happening is, we need to, in the first place, we need to understand that preschool is just that. It is preschool. It is not school. Okay. So those are in those foundational years when a child is going to the preschool, he's actually, those are the first steps that he's taken outside his house, right, outside the home environment, and apart from his mother and the immediate family, he or she gets to meet other people and see other people, have a social interaction, and all those things. What is happening is, what we are trying to do is getting school into preschool. That exactly is what is happening right now. We have not let it remain a preschool. There are so many things that needs to happen. The child needs to learn about the world. The child needs to learn about, what's going to happen when he actually goes into school, but not bringing the school there. So the entire thing of, studies and exams and assessments, all those things have started happening in school. So there's such a lot of pressure over there. What we need to do is the pre-reading skills. You are going to teach reading to the child, but the pre-reading skills are so very important. The pre-reading, the pre-literacy, the pre-maths, pre-writing, those are the skills which one needs to focus on when the child is in preschool. Yeah, but we have stopped doing that. It's more of a competition. It's become such a big competition because everybody wants their children to get admitted into big, very well-known schools, and there are the admission processes and they need to pass that. So because of that, the entire thing is kind of changed. Otherwise, it should be that the child should really have a lot of fun learning all these things. When you're talking about pre-reading schools, it's the story reading, storytelling. That is what is so much more important. You're talking about pre-literacy. You're talking about pre-writing. So for that, even things like sound discrimination. Yeah, children need to, preschooling is also a time for the child to understand the world and what's going to come ahead. But also at the same time, it is a very golden opportunity for the teachers to understand what is the level of the child, what is the difficulty, if there is something that the child is facing. You know, as I'm talking about sound discrimination. And I don't just mean the phonetic sounds of the letters of the alphabet or something like that. But say, for example, you're talking about the sound of water falling, from a glass into a little small tub or a bucket. Or if you talk about the sound of the keys clinking. Yeah. So the thing is, if these sounds are introduced once to the child, and you ask him to close his eyes and again make the sounds, he should be able to identify which sound was that. Yeah. These are simple things which need to happen. Where do you do them? You do them at the preschooling level, isn't it? Because then you need to see that, okay, if the child is taking time in understanding or making a connection between these sounds and the objects that are making them, then there is something that tells you that there might be a sound discrimination issue. There might be a sound discrimination problem, and then you can work on that. If you understand that, and that is why the world talks about early intervention. And this is the time, 0 to 6 years is the time when you actually, if you find out, you need to find out where the issue is, and then you need to work on that. So the early intervention begins. So the early that you start, the better that you do. So once you know that the child has all these issues, you start working on them. And, if a child has sound discrimination issues, he will definitely have the spelling issues once he goes into the school. Yeah. So that is what the connection people need to understand, because this is a golden period where a lot of assessments can be done. But instead, what's happening is the exams are being given and all those things are there. So what I feel is it is basically, and remembering that, very well known 4 letters, ELPS, as we say, that is experience, language, picture, and symbol. The child needs to experience certain things along with the language which comes with it. Then the pictures should be there. Then the symbols. But what we start in our preschool is from the symbols. We say A for apple. That is what parents or the children, teachers start teaching. Right? Instead of that, there's so much of experience needs to happen, and then language needs to go along with that. So we talk about, the visual processing disorders or the auditory processing disorders. You see them at the preschool. You need to do activities, and you need to see that, if you find these issues, we can start working on them. So instead of talking about techniques or talking about the strategies that work well with the preschool, I would say that we need to treat the preschool as the preschool and do a lot of activities over there. Yeah. do a lot of things where the child can see that, or the teacher can see that, there are some issues and we can work with that, or just, get on with, encouraging the child to do better.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are
Makes so
the
much
things.
sense. Yeah,
That's the
because
thing. Yeah, exactly.
we always talk about early intervention and how
Exactly.
important it is. But the way you have explained that why it is emphasized that early intervention is important and when exactly you should do that, when exactly is the time to intervene. So I
Very
think preschool is that phase, in a child's life where a lot of assessment or just, of even a, free play would help them to underline those issues rather
exactly.
than just
Yeah.
starting.
We talk about, when we talk about cognitive development, you're talking about pretend play, you're talking about imaginative play,
Yeah,
and, all these things which are such an important part of the child's development, overall development in a way, because a lot of things, maths is most of the time, it's an abstract science. You need to just calculate
yeah,
numbers out of nowhere.
yeah,
Yeah, so to do all those things, you need to have a strong foundation of all these things, like the pretend play, role play, imaginative play. And preschool is the time that you give children opportunities to do all these things. Sand play, water play,
yeah, yeah.
name it. You
Name it.
have an enthusiastic and energetic, full of energy group of children there, young children, and it's like a canvas for a teacher. You can actually build,
Yeah,
it's a sculpture.
yeah,
Yeah, so that's an amazing group. I love preschool age group, and it gives you the opportunity. There's so much to do with that particular group.
yeah.
You can actually make or break the child,
Yeah.
depending
Indoors.
on how you work with the child.
Mm, true.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that
I
is
think
very
it is a
important.
very important pointer for
Yeah,
everybody, like irrespective of the teacher or the parent, whoever is listening.
exactly. Yeah,
And it's something, like you said, apart from all the set rules which we all see, I think we need to change our perspective and start seeing the whole preschool structure like this. And it
exactly.
applies to both teachers and parents, I think both. So we have Joy Singhania, and he totally agrees with the information you have shared, ma'am.
Oh,
Nina Girish wants to know about your experience with Sparks. So this is
with
something that
Spark.
Sparks, yes.
Okay, okay. Yeah. So as I told you that I have been working with parents, and it's a lot to do. Of course, when you work with children, parents of children who are on the spectrum, communication is a big aspect of it. So yes, I've been doing it in a very non-formal way. It's not a very formal spark communication thing, but of course, depending on which level the child is. One of the very, very important things to see is you need to know at which level the child is functioning, and then start from there, which immediately. It's not that you do have a checklist, or you just start ticking, okay, this is done, this is done, this is done, but you need to be more understandable of what the household environment is. What does the family member think, or how do they work along with the child, and what is the immediate level of the child, and how do you go ahead with that? So it is a combination basically of all the hand-in strategies, and any kind of, the picture exchange communication, and communication strategies, and spark communication. So I always do. I don't actually stick to any one particular thing. It's basically a mix of stuff. Only whatever is needed for a particular child and suits the particular family is what we try to give.
Lovely. So we have more comments pouring in. We have Sashi Thakur with us. She's a wonderful writer, blogger,
Okay.
and very compassionate person. And she says it's very interesting to hear to you, ma'am, and so many insights you have already shared. And she's just making note of it. And
Oh, thank
Emma,
you.
she says she agrees that yes, preschool should be a fun time, learning in a very fun way, and not just the proper schooling structure.
Exactly.
And yeah, that brings me to the next part, ma'am. We are talking about empowering parents, and When you have worked so closely with parents, what is your approach when it comes to encouraging a collaborative relationship between parents and educators, or for that matter of fact, when they are interacting with professionals also, or therapists also? So how do you encourage that collaborative approach, and why this is important when we are talking about empowering? Because we have heard many a times that based on what parents have heard or some other parent has experienced, based on their interaction with an educator and vice versa, there's always that preconceived notion somewhere in back of their mind, and somewhere, like, I feel that that hinders your approach of getting a solution out of something, or getting a guidance for your child. So how do you encourage that, because you have interacted with so many parents and educationists also? So what is your take on that?
Yeah. Firstly, when you say the collaboration between the professionals and the parents, I think there is no question about it. I mean, there should be the, it is the, parents are the most important factor over here. I feel that, you know, um, anything that when professionals are working for a child, they make a goal or they make a plan, they make strategies to work with the child. It is only for a few hours that the child is with the professional. We need to remember that. That is one of the most important things, that he will go back home, and it is the parents who are going to be dealing with that. So I think letting the parents participate or be a part of your, whatever goals that you're planning for your child, whatever strategy it is the way that you work, the way that you speak to the child, because we all know it is said that it takes a village to raise a child, basically. So everybody who's involved with a child, be it a parent or a grandparent or a sibling or a neighbor even, yeah, anybody who's involved, because we need to understand that as it is for any typically developing child, it is important that the parents involvement is should be there. But when it comes to, when we're talking about children with special needs, particularly on the spectrum, it is all the more important that the parent be present. Parent understands very clearly what is happening, because you imagine that, I mean, the child who anyway has difficulty in understanding or is struggling to learn certain things, yeah, so will take a particular time to learn one thing from one particular person, be it a professional. But when he goes back home, he doesn't want to hear something else, because that is more confusing. Parents are telling him to learn or to do a particular task in one particular way, and the professional is doing it completely in a different way. Yeah. And maybe the neighbors are doing it in a different way. The grandparents are totally on a different, path. So it becomes very, very essential that for the child to learn, to understand the kind of behavior that he needs to perform, the kind of social attitude, the social skills that he needs to develop. It is very, very important that we need to have parents involved in whatever we are doing. I've been working with, I mean, I can't count the number of parents that I've been working all these years. And many times I've heard parents coming and telling me that, ma'am, जब हम जाते हैं for the therapy classes or for anything, हमको बोला जाता है कि आप बाहर बैठो, हम उसको अंदर ले जाते हैं and हम काम करते हैं. And only at PTMs, once a year, or maybe at the most twice or thrice a year, parents get to know what exactly is happening with the child. Yeah. So it is very important that, but that is not the way to work. The parents should be there. He needs to be present to see how exactly work is being done, because they are not professionals. Okay. They need to observe the professional. They need to understand why certain thing is being done with the child. And hence, that is what makes it very important that parents be taught. They should be present. They should know what is happening with their child, so that to perform the same thing. And then the learning becomes easier. I can't tell you the number of, if you look at some of the parents who really show a lot of interest in what is happening with the child, be there and, do everything that the professional tells them, actually. plans ahead for the child, and do all sorts of things and be there and understand the child in a way. So you see a big difference in the way that the child is progressing. You see the goals are being achieved much faster because the parent is involved and the parent is also doing certain things. Many a times, if the parent is not involved and the parent is not actually, maybe not doing much with the child, you automatically see that there is a decline in the progress, or maybe some other behavior problems coming up. So there are a lot of issues that come up. So I really am a big advocate for parents being present, that they should know, they should be aware of what exactly is happening, and there should be a very clear-cut dialogue between the professionals and the parents.
So I think
So
that
that
will,
is very
help
important.
them to understand how to go for it once the child is
Exactly.
back at home, because,
Right.
you rightly said, they'll be in the centers or the school only for certain hours, but rest of
Right.
the day they are with parents. And if they are not aware, or they don't know how to, go for a certain situation, it
Mm.
will create problem for both the
It
parent
will.
and the child.
It
So,
will.
yeah,
Yeah.
so rightly explained, ma'am. We have few more questions from our viewers, and I would like to take one by one. Let me see. So we have Lokeshwari, and she's asking. You mentioned, a while back about pre-literacy and pre-reading, pre-maths. So she just wants you to, elaborate on all these three pointers. What is pre-reading? What is pre-math? And what is pre-literacy?
Yeah. See, pre-reading basically, when you need to understand what reading is to talk about pre-reading, right? So we all know what reading is. It's about understanding what the letters say and what words you make and what are the sounds of it. And it's not only that; it goes to the extent of understanding the meaning of the word. Comprehending what you're reading. You have many children who would actually read very fluently, but you ask them what is the gist of it, or can you
They
explain it to
are
me what
not.
you've read? So there's
Yeah.
no idea, there's no clue about it. Okay, so reading basically comprises of everything. When you what the words, the letters, uh, the sentences, and the meaning of it. So all those things basically. So when you talk about pre-reading, yeah, you actually need to understand that the comprehension part of it. If you take the comprehension part of it, you're talking about first of all, making the child understand that print has some meaning. It is not only, you don't see that the children are, for example, you take a household where there is a lot of reading happening. Yeah. So children are not scared when they go to the school. It's not a scary business to see that, okay, now I have to read this, or this is the homework, or all those things that are there, because they've born in that environment, or they brought up in that environment where reading is happening and they hear a lot of.
Yeah.
So by pre-reading, what I mean is that even though the child is not able to read, but he needs to hear somebody reading. So that comes to stories.
Stories.
You
Yeah.
read stories to the child, or you give messages to the child.
Mm.
Say, for example, write a message and give it to the child to pass it on to somebody else, and
Mm.
that person actually does an action. Maybe say you want a pencil, so
Mm.
write a message to the in a small slip, give it to the child and say, give it to that person. So
Mm.
when the person reads it, he gives back a pencil. So the child needs to see that there was no dialogue which took
Yeah.
place, but this is such an important tool that he has in his hand. Writing and reading, literacy,
Yeah.
so that people can actually do something even without communicating,
Communicating.
even without speaking,
Mm.
right? So reading is an important tool. So understanding all that kind of thing, so sound discrimination is a big part of reading. So as I
Definitely.
said, because they
Yeah.
affect your spelling. Yeah.
Yeah.
When you're talking about pre-maths, you're talking about understanding shapes. You're talking about understanding colors. You're talking about understanding, the various sorting. How do you sort?
Yeah.
For example, you're talking about sorting spoons. Okay, you
Yeah.
can sort spoons as all spoons together because they are spoons. Okay, you can group them together, but you can also sort them as there are long spoons and there are short spoons. There are wooden spoons, there are metal spoons, there are glass spoons or plastic spoons. So that can be sorted. Yeah, there's spoons for soup, there's spoons for eating, there are tablespoons and the teaspoons. So it is like understanding, it's a cognitive development, when you're talking about various aspects like this. So children know, when they engage in such activities before doing the bigger things like, reading textbooks or doing calculation, they need to understand, and for example, even again, when talking about pre-math skills, you need to understand sequence. Yeah. Because maths is all about sequence. You will never have number 8 before number 7. It will always be after 7. Yeah. You will never have, Friday before, say, Sunday or something like that. It's always be before Saturday. So there is a sequence to things. So, putting things in sequence, understanding sequence of events, putting stories in sequence, if you have story cards, if somebody's done this, then he went on that, like, what is that? The hungry caterpillar. So that's a wonderful story. You can see that it follows a particular sequence. So what I'm saying is looking at understanding patterns, looking at these sequences prepares the child to be ready for numbers, to be ready for maths. Yeah. And, these pre-reading skills, understanding stories, understanding what happened. Stories always have a sequence again. Yeah. So what happens, after that? Uske baad kya hua? Uske baad kya hua? So what happens is when you read a story to the child and ask him to repeat the story, it'll be all over. He will not know where exactly the sequence is. But that is what you need to see. You need to develop that particular sequence. So pre-reading, pre-maths, pre-literacy. Pre-literacy is pre-writing is all about, many a times you hear that the child is not having good handwriting. He's not following a line. He's either going above the line or going below the line or mixing up the words and things like that. And then when you see that he does not have a good handwriting, then you start practicing on aise likho, aise karke nahi likho, aise. But what have you done before he started writing? So that is the pre-writing skills. You need to work with minute things. You need to develop his fine motor skills. Before even letting him handle the pencil, let him hold a crayon, let him draw, let him scribble, let him just make lines as far as possible. Let him use mediums like paints, like water, like, any other thing to color. Yeah. So those are all the things which are actually pre-writing skills. If you give a shape to a child and ask him to fill it up, so that means that his fingers should have the control to stop once the crayon or the color pencil goes to the
outside the circle.
The outside. Yeah. So that it does not go outside the circle. So those are the things, controlling your finger movements, manipulating, do the finger manipulation basically. Try to, we can all manipulate the pencil in whichever way that we want. Many children are not able to do that. So the kind of pressure that is required for writing. You need to practice writing in the air, writing on the sand, writing on the water, writing on the clay. Do all those things. The clay is such an important aspect of preschool. I always say that every classroom, be it a nursery or pre-nursery or LKG or whatever, should have big boxes of clay there, so that the children can play, the children can manipulate clay. And that is pre-reading, pre-writing, everything. Yeah, so those are the kind of skills which are required.
I hope it helps. So we have Saida Nagmi with us. She she's parent to Ahil, and I've met Saida in person, and Ahil, who is on spectrum. And I can tell you, ma'am, that what you mentioned, that when a parent is involved and is told or taught about what to be done, Saida is one such person. And she has already mentioned she'll start the practice, what you have shared just now, and she started today itself. So she is
Oh,
that
that's so
focused
sweet.
when it
That's so
comes to
nice.
Ahil, and we all have, seen that growth in Ahil also. And
Yeah.
the kind of dedication which you were talking about, it is there very much in Saida. And it's wonderful that she's listening to you, and she's sharing what she's has already planned. So
Oh,
this
that's
this
so
is a
sweet.
power you hold, ma'am, when it comes from you. And yes, we also,
It's
we do
wonderful.
this story reading sessions where we
Mm,
recently had our, our own in-house storyteller, Nina. She did the storytelling session on Hungry Caterpillar.
mhm.
Yeah, so we did it, and we also have a comment here from Shashi Thakur. She agrees that parents have to partner in child's learning, both academic and co-curricular activities,
Curriculum.
also along with the teacher. And we so agree to this. And I do have a question here for you next, but I also got a question from Purnamma, and I'm going to club that because both of them address the same thing, but in different situations. So, my question to you was like, how, what is the advice you want to give to parents who are currently navigating these challenges or working with children or young adult with special needs? And Purnama is here. She asked, which is a very important question, that, there are a lot of parents who are not literate, right? They have not
Yeah.
done their whole education, and it can be anywhere in, irrespective of their financial background. So,
Yeah.
here we are sitting and talking about schools and educators, but to those parents who have not been into the education and not studied, how should we make them aware?
Mm,
How should we advise them to navigate? Because this is something, it is not section to come here or there. So
yeah.
any parent who is navigating, what is that advice you want to give?
Mm, mm. See, first of all, I would just say that you need to know your child. That is very, very important. Yeah, that was one of the things. You do get a diagnosis. Once there is a diagnosis, किसी ने भी कुछ भी बोला आपको डॉक्टर ने बोला या you go to a special educator or a counselor or जिस किसी ने भी आपको एक diagnosis दिया है, so you need to understand what is it, है क्या चीज वो, and what does it entail, उसमें हम क्या कर सकते हैं अगर because of the diagnosis, what is it that your child is finding difficulty in, look at that particular thing, कहाँ पर difficulty हो रही है, and then once you do that, you need to get a coach, either get a coach or learn something about it. And that is why I keep saying it is not only the teachers who need constant training or while being in the service or just there to understand the child and to work with it, but it is also the parents. And it becomes somehow it becomes a work of the professionals to see that the parents are trained, to see that at least they know something about their child, if not about all the other children. But and that is more important, I feel. So इसीलिए बहुत जरूरी होता है कि once you come to know that there is a difficulty with my child and I've been given a label or a diagnosis has taken place, so I
Hmm.
need to find out more about it. पहली बात तो ये क्या है, इसमें क्या तकलीफ होती है, क्या किस वजह से बच्चा नहीं सीख पा रहा है,
Hmm.
क्यों हुआ है, क्या हुआ है, you don't need to learn know that. Yeah, because that's not going to help you anymore, and then you'll become more and more into इस वजह से हुआ, उस वजह से
Right.
हुआ, क्या हुआ, that is a different thing. You
Hmm.
need to see what is the present situation, आज क्या है बच्चे,
Hmm.
आज क्या है और आप कहाँ तक ले जाना चाहते हैं. And the other thing is to have, once you know that, to have realistic expectations. Do not have unrealistic expectations.
Yeah.
You can't blame the parents. Everybody wants their child to go into a typical school, mainstream school, big school, अच्छी तरह से पढ़े, अच्छा हो. That is the goal. Everybody wants it. I mean, you can't blame the parents for that. लेकिन अगर कुछ नहीं हो रहा है, if there is an issue, there is a difficulty over there, so you need to see that, come to terms with it first of all.
Yeah.
I know it is easier said than done.
Set-
We cannot just sit here and preach and say that everybody should come to terms with whatever they. It is a difficult situation, and we understand that we are not in their shoes basically. But um, the more what one thing, very particular thing that the parents all need to understand, whatever level that your child is in, जो भी difficulty hai child ko. He does understand how the parent is feeling. Yeah. So that is something very important. If you feel very stressed, if you feel very agitated, very angry, or very depressed half the time, why that such a thing has happened to me and all that thing, it gets transferred to the child. Yeah. And that is something that we all need to understand. And that is why it is important that, okay, once the initial stages are done, you have to come to terms with whatever situation is there and then learn what to do. As I said, get a coach, get a mentor, try to learn. Or I know we have the internet nowadays, Google, Babaji hai, and then you can learn anything from there.
Yeah.
But it is also better, it is good to understand, because not everything fits your child. Okay, what you learn in a particular checklist, or what you see that, acha, milestones ye nahi hue, then that is a problem. This is not nahi hua, then that is the case. You don't come to conclusions like that. There are so many issues. Try to look at the strong points of your child as well as something that you can more strengthen, the weak point that the child has. So both the things, I would say that it's not a big thing, bahut bada. As I said right at the beginning, the eye does not see what the mind does not know. So you feel that, oh my God, it's such a huge thing and no one don't know what's happening. But once you start getting to know things a little bit more, you find things much easier, and be in a state of calmness to see that it is actually transferred to the child too. Otherwise, if you are half the time, getting disturbed or shouting or telling the child, not to do this and do that. So that is what comes from the child as well. He learns to say no. He learns to get angry because he feels that is the way to communicate. How is he learning communication from? Where is he learning it from? It's from the parents, from people who are interacting with them. So if you get angry with a child, you hit a child, he feels that is the way to communicate. So you in turn, he starts doing that. Yeah. So express that calmness, let it be there. And things cannot be changed. You are at a place right now. There are no medicines. There is nothing that actually can change. So you need to come to terms with the situation that you are in and make best use of that.
Yeah. I think, accept, adapt, and evolve.
Exactly.
So that is, and yes, as we are talking about it, it's very easy at our part to say.
Yeah.
I remember interviewing one of the mentor parent. We had Pinky ma'am. She's from Bhubaneswar, Odisha, and we were talking about how she has, dealt with the situation there, because usually, people believe that, in places like Mumbai, Pune, Delhi, or Bangalore, or the big cities, it is easier. With smaller cities, the issues are different. And
Yeah.
so she said the same thing, that this is my message to the parents, that don't expect overnight
Exactly. Yeah.
something will happen. It is our expectation, something that is there in our mind, but it will not happen, because it's a process that will take its own time.
Yeah.
And even a child, when when he or she goes to a preschool, uh, there is day one where the child is howling and crying, and then there is day XYZ where he's happily going to the school.
Right.
So it is the same way. You have to see, then only we can work on it. Otherwise, if you're just keeping the expectations very high and not working the same way, so we will not understand the potential of our own child. And
Right.
that, I think, like beautifully
Exactly.
explained here also, ma'am. And
Exactly like you're talking about the small towns. I have parents coming from very small places in
yeah,
Orissa and Bihar as well, and very rightly said. Sometimes what also happens is the parents are misled. Yeah, there are
yeah,
so many
yeah,
places that like somebody has been going to a speech therapist, say for example, for a child who's on the spectrum, nearly for an year, and all that's been happening is just being asking the child to repeat certain things and going on doing that. And you have such strange kind of things which many of you get to hear that professionals are doing, and that is also true in some way, and that is why it's important for the parents to actually learn a lot of things and be aware to see what is there. And sorry, you were saying something, I interrupted you.
No.
Yeah.
It's perfectly fine. I think you
Yeah.
addressed one more point, for irrespective of the city, state, or country where you belong to, where you stay. I think, making yourself aware.
Yeah.
You have to face certain things to make it better. So I think
True.
that approach every parent has to have. And here we have Ranjana with us. She is our core team member, and she shares that it's so beautifully explained, ma'am, that why it something happened is not that important. What is important here is to how to address the issue, how to go ahead, and work on that. So
Okay.
yeah, and we have one more question from Purnama. She says that there are situations and conditions and where a parent might not accept, and
Yeah.
how in that situation, how to make a parent accept the child and his or her condition.
Mm.
It's very important sometimes, a third angle or a third perspective to be put across to a parent to accept
Mm.
their own child and the
Yeah.
situation that child is. So how to go for that?
Right. There are different levels of that rejection and not actually accepting that. Uh, it may be just uh, completely putting it away, like this cannot happen with me, and I'm in no way, this is not true. Okay, basically that's the thing. And the other thing is basically, thinking that no, my child can do much better than much more than what other people are saying, being in a very unrealistic kind of expectation world that that there. So yes, it takes there are various kinds of these issues, and then you need to actually uh, depending on what level of rejection that the parent is at the moment, you need to see whether some specialized help is required for the parent, you know but some counseling sessions where the parent can see, or if there are other children in the family, to also to talk to the parent about how the other children are progressing at this particular age, and this is what is the difficulty with your child, and also showing some positive things. It's like not the end of the world. You can do certain things, and जहां भी है आपका बच्चा वहां से आगे बढ़ सकता है.
Exactly. Hmm.
I always feel there is no child with zero progress. ऐसा नहीं होता है. It is not there. I have been dealing with so many parents, particularly right now with so many, parents say in Hyderabad, parents in Mumbai. So they, when they started, it was completely like, कुछ नहीं करता है मैम, कुछ भी नहीं. Huh? And within 3-4 months, you see that that outlook is completely changed, because you try to look at the little things. छोटी छोटी चीजें आपको प्रोग्रेस दिखाने लगती है कि अच्छा, अरे वो तो ये नहीं कर रहा था, अब ये करता है, अरे वो तो ये भी कर सकता है. So you try to look for that positiveness in your child's little steps, जो भी छोटे छोटे steps वो लेता है. So that's what I would say, again, कि हिम्मत हारने वाली बात नहीं होनी चाहिए, है ना. जितना भी हो, your child can definitely take a step and do something depending on the level that he is in. Again, seek some help. मैं वही बोलूंगी कि help लो.
And we even even we have been advocating about the same, that seek help when required, and
Yeah,
you never know what will come your way and how that can
exactly.
transform your life.
Exactly.
Ma'am, all this while we have been talking about how a parent should approach a situation, how the parent should deal with the child or with the professionals. In all this, there is one very important thing which we all have been talking, about it. That is self care.
Mm.
And as we say, life will keep on moving, and there will be things coming up here and there. And
Yeah.
especially for parents who are dealing with kids or adults with special needs,
Mm.
self-care holds such a big role.
Yeah.
So, what do you suggest, or maybe you can share what do you do for your self-care? Because even for you as a professional, interacting with so many people, it can be
Mm.
overwhelming at times. It can
Yeah.
be it's not that it would drain you, but it gives you so much to process
So
also.
much.
You
Yeah.
need a time for yourself, that me time.
Yeah.
So how do you think that, or how much important it is, for parents?
It is absolutely important, very, very important, as say. Parenting itself is a very stressful job. It's a 24/7 stressful job, and of any child. Yeah. And particularly if you have a child with special needs in your hands, then it becomes your complete, like your entire routine, your entire day is revolving around what the child wants to eat, what the child, how do you teach him to take a bath, go to the toilet, and academics and all those things. So entirely everything is revolving just around the child over there. So again, what I would say is that make a timetable. That is one of the very, very important things for the parents to do. Make a timetable, and in the entire household, basically. Yeah, everybody should be involved in it. And when there are responsibilities, they should be shared by everybody. It's not just the mother, continuously going from morning 6 o'clock to night 12 o'clock, just
Right.
for the child, revolving around the child. So you need to seek out that time. You need to have a time where somebody else can take a little bit of responsibility. It is always better to, if possible, send the child, of course, to a special school or school, whichever is there, or if the child is going to a center. That gives a little bit of a window or a
Yeah.
time for the parent to have that me time that you're talking about. But even if that is not possible, if the child is at home, I think the members of the family should take turns and should see that, the health of, because see, once if everything is only focused on one particular parent or the caregiver, and if something happens to that person, the
Yeah.
whole household will fall apart. Nobody will be able to take care of the child. So that is why right from the beginning, I think everybody needs to have that responsibility in that. And then I would also want the parents to think, I mean, realize that they need to have a habit also. They need to develop some hobbies in a way,
Yeah.
do some reading, do some, whatever suits you. It's
Yeah.
nothing like these are the
Before that,
hobbies that
yeah.
should be there, anything that is there. But have that little bit of a time and have that positive outlook towards your child, towards yourself.
Yeah.
I know many of the parents, mothers particularly, as we know,
Yeah.
कि अब हम कुछ करने का टाइम नहीं मिलता है, कुछ भी नहीं है, totally 24 hours we are revolving around the child and occupied with them. And that is what is uh, breaks down the mother in a great way. So we need to have the other family members involved in that. uh, Cultivate a hobby, as I've been saying, do some meditation.
Yeah.
uh, all those things are required. Self-care is very, very important. And same for me too, as you're saying, and same for you too. Yeah,
Yeah.
we are all professionals, we are constantly involved in this.
Yeah.
And then sometimes, what the parent tells us gets to you, it stays with you even
Yeah.
after the session is over. You keep thinking how difficult it is, for
Yes.
a particular parent. And I can't even begin to tell you the number of stories I hear, which is very, 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 very heartbreaking. Yeah. So, yeah, that is, it is a difficult situation, but we need to come through it.
Yeah.
And again, saying that it would affect the child somehow or the other. So
Yeah.
keeping that in mind, we need to be very, very clear about how we act, how we interact.
Yeah. And I think, self-care plays a role over there,
Yeah,
because when you're giving
definitely.
yourself time, that is the best thing you can do to yourself, and that will give you the energy to, approach the
Exactly.
whatever situation you have in hand.
Yeah,
I think that is
yeah.
beautifully expressed, ma'am. Lastly, before we close down, what is your message to the community? Because when we are talking about empowering parents, it is not only some particular person's responsibility, or
Mm,
empowerment is something, it will not happen just out of the blue. So
right.
as a community, we play a bigger role when it comes to, we are talking about that we want the parents to be empowered. Even we play
Mm,
a very big role in that. So
yeah,
what is your message to the community?
yeah. Like that's what I was saying, like it's not I would say कि special needs का होना इतना बड़ा हवा नहीं है, like as it's been made. There are ways to deal with it. There are ways that you can help the child progress. There are so many things that can be done, not to lose heart. And I would say that, it is parent in themselves is a big part. So to empower yourself, you know, get get some knowledge about it, get some training, get some understanding about where your child is, seek help from the right kind of person, and try to understand. Do not have these unrealistic expectations, as I said, but I'm sure once you focus on the strong points of the child and you're able to work towards seeing even that the little steps that the child is taking, it's towards a positive path, so that can be achieved, what I would say. तो इसीलिए definitely I mean there's nothing in the world जो नहीं हो सकता है. बहुत सारी चीजें हैं जो डेफिनेटली हो सकती हैं.
Hmm.
तो हमें उन चीजों को देख के काम करना चाहिए. इट्स लाइक हौसलों से उड़ान होती है ना.
Yeah.
So that is what and also as I keep saying that if you uh, keep doing things the way that you've been doing, you will always get what you've always been getting. Yeah. So if you need something different, if you want something different, you need to do something different. है ना. तो अभी तक जो काम नहीं आया है या नहीं दे
Hmm.
पाया है, तो आप कुछ अलग करके देखो. कुछ मतलब मे बी दिस इज नॉट वर्किंग,
Yeah.
मे बी यूर इन द रॉन्ग पाथ. तो हम थोड़ा और उसकी तरफ ध्यान करके देखें कि क्या है. शायद कुछ अलग तरीके से करने से हो सकता है.
हो सकता
You just need to explore. You just need to see and do things differently, maybe.
है. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonderful. I think,
Okay.
while every parent is, navigating their path of how to train the child, or how to, handle the situation or interact with the child, as a community, we play the role of, supporting the parent, and wherever, in whichever way it is possible.
All right.
And, keeping ourselves first aware that how and, where we should need to support. It
Exactly.
cannot be
Yeah.
like, we just get up one day and we're like, oh, I want to support. It can never
I
happen.
know.
We need to
Never.
understand the situation. And rightly said, ma'am, that, you have to see it, that how it has progressed from A to B, and not from A to minus A kind of
Yeah.
thing. So
Exactly.
yeah, so that's the, wonderful way to
Yeah.
close this session.
It's like,
And
when you want to see a little distance,
yeah,
wherever you're standing, you will always be able to see just a little distance.
yeah,
You need to go further to see
further,
a little bit more
further.
further.
Yeah,
है ना. तो आगे चलेंगे, बढ़ेंगे, देखेंगे
तभी
तो
होगा.
तभी आगे होगा. है ना.
Yes. On
Yeah.
that note, ma'am, thank you so much for giving your precious time. I know it's exceeded 1 hour, and sharing so much in depth. It's, there are so many takeaways for us, so many learning for us as a parent. Also, I'm a parent of an 8-year-old, and I was also thinking that yes, this is a way it should be approached, or that is a way it should be approached. So thank you so much, ma'am, for
Most
sharing
welcome.
your valuable insight and experience with us. And
Thank you so much for having me over here.
And to our viewers and our members, thank you so much for your extended support. I would also take a moment and ask people to join us in the inclusion pledge and let us reach million hearts. Record a 6-second video saying I so and so take the pledge to be inclusive and accept the unique. Let us spread this message of inclusion more and more in our circles, so that we become more aware about the community we are a part of, and we should work together for a better future. On that note, I'm Sushma Tripathi signing off, and stay tuned for another inspiring Talk to the Expert series coming your way. Thank you so much, ma'am, for your time.
Thank you. Thanks
Bye-bye.
a lot.
Good night.
Bye-bye.